remember the last time I saw him just rolling around on the floor in your house in Lake Oswego, just laughing and having a good old time. That was a
Yeah,
lot of
he's a great kid. They're both great kids. We're
yeah.
very blessed, and the a move is always tough, especially on teenagers. And so we had kind of there's never a good time to do it, but we had kind of a window with this opportunity with Josh finishing eighth grade, and then we moved, and so he has started high school here in Atlanta, and that was important to me. That his life was a big factor in deciding how we did this, because had he already started high school in Portland, I'm not sure that I would have been as
Mm,
open to the opportunity, because
mm,
it's just a huge adjustment.
yeah,
And so at
yeah.
least in this regard, he started at the school he'll finish, and can make new friends, even though that part is still difficult as well. And the quality of the school, the neighborhood, all of were huge decisions on where we decided to purchase, and all
Cool.
of that. But he's
Yeah.
done very well with all of those adjustments. A's and B's this year, his freshman year in high school, and that's about all you can ask for as a parent. Say, oh, okay, I'm going to uproot your life and completely change everything, and they come out on the other side of that with A's and B's. I think you pat yourself on the back and say, okay, we did it.
We did it. Good job. Dave. Good job, Mom. Yeah, right. Beautiful. So, what are you seeing when you look in the world right now? What through your eyes, through your commitment, through your values, through what's important to you? What do you see? What's going on in the world?
My God. Well, I was just speaking of Science Mind magazine. I was just last week writing for I think for the August or September issue. So you'll hear this quoted in there. I said something to the effect of, you may well wonder where all of this chaos and upheaval is coming from. And I said, I have an answer for you. It's coming from your prayers,
Mm,
right? The notion that really want to focus, we're not reacting to a world that has somehow spun out of control, or is going through some difficulty. It is indeed going through, we are going through something, but I want to center and be aware of the idea and the notion that we asked for this. We
mm,
called forward, and I don't mean we asked for it like we were, sometimes when we talk about politics, we say, oh, well, you asked for it because you didn't pay attention, didn't do this, didn't do that. And so you got what you got. But when I say that, when I say we co-created this moment, we brought forward this moment, what I mean is that we've been, and even particularly, so we're talking about a New Thought audience here,
yep.
we have been praying, studying, learning about and affirming about a world that works for all. We've been singing "Peace on Earth," "Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me" for decades.
Mm,
We've been talking about harmony as a principle in the universe, and oneness and inclusivity and all of these things, and what we knew, what you and I know as spiritual teachers in this movement, is that if so, set the world aside for a moment. Let's just talk about how the principles work
yep.
at an individual level. Always, whenever I'm teaching foundations class or whatever, when people are overwhelmed by the global situation, I
Yep.
just say, okay, set that aside. Let's talk about it at the individual level.
And that's what's important for the folks that are tuning in today, is we want it to be meaningful for them individually as well.
Yeah.
So I
So,
love it. Yep.
and then from that understanding, you can then apply it to back to the global, because we believe in the micro macro, right? So it's all one, and how it works at the individual level is how it works at the universal level. So at the individual level, what we say, what we teach, what we know, is that as you affirm a greater spiritual truth about who you are, pick the topic, fill in the blank, whatever topic you want: health, wholeness, prosperity, relationship, etc. If you say, I am whole, prosperous, and complete, I am fulfilled in divine right relationship, I am, you know the process. You create an affirmation, you repeat that, you're saying a spiritual truth that you want to create. The conditions or circumstances of your life are not currently reflecting that, but it's where you want to be. It's where your spiritual vision is. And so you say that, and you say it, and you affirm it. You do it 100 times a day. You do it when you wake up. You do it at your prayer and meditation, when you go to bed, et cetera, et cetera. You do it over and over again, and it acts like a steady drip, 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 drip into the consciousness. And what we know is that you cannot have a constant, steady drip of spiritual truth without the equal and opposite substance within our consciousness, collective field that is in opposition to that, suddenly rising to the surface to be reconciled with. So if I say I'm whole, prosperous, complete, every day, drip, 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 suddenly what will rise up, that drip comes in, and it kind of gets underneath that stuff, and it lifts it up to the surface. And if my affirmation is about prosperity, then all of a sudden what comes to the surface is all the behaviors, attitudes, ways of being that are blocking my prosperity suddenly come right into the forefront in front of my face, and I have to deal with them. I have to deal with that I'm not spending or tracking or whatever it is, right?
So folks could folks could get caught up there and say, "What I've been doing these affirmations," and all of a sudden, well, here's lack and all these other things. So folks need to have tools to be able to deal with that too. That my prayer work isn't working. It's not working because this is right here. How do we deal with that? I'm sure you're going to go there, but
yeah. And so that's what I'm saying, is that's the evidence that your prayer work is working. That's the evidence. That's part of the step, right? So that you're planting something in subconscious mind, and it surfaces everything that needs to be dealt with. So we know that. What I want to talk about in terms of what I see in the world is that you and I know that, and we teach that. I'm a bit confused and befuddled at our resistance or our staggering around a little bit about race relations and those sorts of things, when it simply is following the exact same pattern, the exact same thing. So we've been affirming and praying for a world that works for everyone, wholeness, harmony, inclusivity, we're all one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, forever. And now what's rising to the surface is everything in our behavior, ways of being, structures of knowing and thinking that is standing in the way of that. And it's here it's a demonstration of our prayer work so that we can deal with it. And then, so what happens in those moments? So now to get to what do you do? And that's there. The what do you do is you then have a choice. You've been adding this spiritual truth, and now this rises up. And so now you have a choice. Do I stick with the old, or do I choose the new? And that's the sort of spiritual bifurcation point, if you will, that occurs for us on our journey. And the ego will want to choose the old, not because it's good for us, but simply because it's known.
It's comfortable, even though it might. Yeah.
The ego will always choose what's more comfortable. What is the known territory? What is it what is predictable? So so my lack and limitation, if we were praying about prosperity, it may be producing conditions in my life that I don't like. Obviously, that's why I was doing the affirmations. But when it comes to choosing it, suddenly there's part of my subconscious mind that goes, oh, but I love these limiting thoughts. Right? Right. Say, oh,
my banky. It's my banky.
Right. I remember when I got this limiting idea, it fits so well. It's like trying to put on a coat that doesn't fit anymore, but you're going, but I look so good. And if I just tuck in my stomach and I just, and it's like, no, you gotta, so the ego will always want to choose what's comfortable, what's known, what's easy, what's predictable. But choosing the unknown, choosing that which we don't have evidence for yet, is where our faith comes in.
Yeah.
So we have to be willing not only to choose properly, but then to give an eviction notice to all those old ideas, right? We got to say, no, you can't stay here anymore. Thank you for serving me. You got to go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go in this direction. And that's the difficulty that we're dealing with right now, is that there's been a rising up in collective consciousness of wanting to choose something new, and all the old stuff is saying, yeah, but what about? And so we got to walk through that, and that walk is difficult.
Yeah, yeah, but I want to remind everybody that you can ask questions of myself, of Dr. David. Please, any questions that come up, please type them in. Jeff will make sure that we see them somehow. So that's the hard choice is, so let's say that I haven't liked black people my entire life for whatever reason. I was taught that. That's my paradigm. It's not my paradigm, but I'm saying, what if it's let's say that's whatever the paradigm is.
Mhm.
If it's racism, anything, prosperity, I've been poor my whole life. It's what I know. It is what I know. It's what I'm taught. So I start to get a glimpse of maybe there's a different way of doing things. These things start coming up. How do we walk through that though? Because it's the only thing I know. You know, that's it. What it takes. What I'm hearing from you is it takes risk. It does take being uncomfortable. I mean, for God's sake, I was just looking this morning at a news story on CBS Sports, and there's one black NASCAR driver. His name's Bubba Wallace, and a noose was left in his car over the weekend in Talladega, Alabama. And I've been to a race in Talladega, Alabama. So whoever left that noose is like this is their world.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do? I mean, what do we just keep having to bring it back to that personal level? There's only so much I can control. I can control what's here right now. But what if there's a part of me that wants to change, that has an idea, me not liking black people, that just isn't, it's not right, or it's not right anymore. And I start to, so it takes risking, it takes courage,
Mm-hmm.
going out on the limb. Can you talk about that a little bit? Or am I talking about it?
No, that's deep. I mean, it
is deep.
Those questions are where the work is. What I would say to that is that what we're dealing with there is fear. Fear of the unknown. Just fear. And when you're dealing with fear, there's a projection that happens. We project our fear onto some object and make that the matter with us. So that can be people of color, that could be rich people. If we're poor, it could be anything, right? But it's whatever we don't think we are. And so there's a projection that occurs. And then that projection becomes the object of our fear. But what we have to understand is anytime you're dealing with fear, what you're really dealing with is a lack of knowing yourself. Right?
All right.
So okay. It looks like, oh, I have a problem with these kinds of people. No, actually, what you have a problem with is you don't actually know who you are. You don't know or love yourself enough to accept your own wholeness, such that your lack of accepting your own wholeness has caused you to project onto an object of something or someone else, and then make that the core issue with your lack of reconciling, you see. So I think that's why New Thought has such a powerful opportunity in this moment in collective consciousness and where we are in the world, to be a healing bridge, because we know that personal work so well. We know how to bring people into our fold and say, work on you, get to know you, work on your healing, work on your fears, work on your doubts, work on your every thought of unworthiness. And we know how to workshop that stuff and get people in classes and get them to work that. And that is that's a powerful gift that we have, that the world desperately needs right now. It's a lack of knowing who we really are. And so that's what I would say. Anytime we're dealing with fear, we're dealing with that lack of knowing.
So that's what I'm hearing. One of the things I'm hearing you saying is some of the most powerful work we can do is fall in love with ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's really dive into who we are, and use fear as an indicator of where we have work, where we can fall more in love, like we do, like I do with my daughter. Any situations if she's afraid, and it's the easiest thing for me to kind of bring it back to parenting. And so whenever my daughter's afraid, I'm there. I'm doing what I can to encourage her, empower her, let her know Daddy's here, everything's going to be safe, everything's going to be okay. If you fall, I'll pick you up. It's kind of that same relationship with ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because to the degree that you know and love who you are, you could not um, make someone or something else the object of your hate because you don't have
Because you don't have it. So let's bring it home to Centers for Spiritual Living for a moment. Where are we as a movement right now? What are the conversations look like at the highest level of in light of what's, where we are, and even maybe not the obvious stuff, like where are we? What's our commitment? Since, Palm Desert, we're a member of Centers for Spiritual Living.
it. Right.
We're a prominent community within the movement, and I think some of our folks would like to hear where are we as a movement? Again, at the highest levels of leadership, because that's where you sit.
Right. Well, the year began with all, I'm sure, as every center did, the year began with such tremendous high hopes, 2020, the year of vision, et cetera, et cetera. All of these new programs or things that we're going to do. And then the coronavirus hits and we all get sheltered in place and doing church out of our homes and living rooms and et cetera. And it just spun everything. And
Yep.
then in the midst of that, we discover that there's a collective consciousness that is now ready, hungry, and eager to have a deeper conversation about race relations in America. So everything has turned up on its head, I think, and for the better. I joke a lot with my board and community because for 2020, we did not go with what I called the low-hanging fruit of choosing a theme that had something to do with vision. I was like, oh, that's just too easy. And so others, I didn't want to be like everybody else. So something else came through last fall. And so Holy Shift has been our theme this year.
I've seen that.
Yeah. And so it's like, excuse me, where do I turn in my ticket to get credit? Like I called 2020. 2020 has been the year of holy shift. There's
So
a holy shift going on.
We can thank you.
That's right. I dialed that in. There's a holy shift going on. So that's really the conversation, which is like, what does post COVID-19 church spiritual community look like? Do we continue to do classes online? When do we gather in person? How do we gather in person? So home office, our headquarters that all of our communities like yours so beautifully and wonderfully support and tithe to, is working really hard to provide resources to the ministers and to our boards about how to do that and do it effectively. A lot of great training and education going on. And of course, there's a part of our core mission, which is education, which doesn't change at all. The form may change. We may not be, I'm not gathering people in person for classes, but I'm gathering them online like this with Zoom. And I'm actually getting more people to join a class. And I'm getting, I just did a class on the art of uncertainty, Dennis Merritt Jones's book, which is a great book to do a class on in this season. And, I had people from Oregon and Texas and, it's like so people don't have to be geographically isolated when it comes to getting their spiritual nourishment, and our core thing that we offer is education. So that part hasn't changed. How we offer services and all of that is constantly in change right now. And then the third piece, which is this deeper conversation on race relations, which to me, for the spiritual context, is really about taking a deep dive of embodiment and being willing to have the courage to be in integrity with our vision. So to speak about what we're doing around that in just a moment, but I want to dial that in for a second.
Sure.
Integrity with our vision, it means, do we have the moral courage to stand in what it takes to create a world that works for everyone? We affirm that our vision is a world that works for everyone. We affirm that our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, and then our purpose is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. So that last part, purpose, we got that, right? We got the tools. The tools are the classes, and the form is changing with online and all those sorts of things. But that part more or less is in place. Focus on the other two, the vision and mission, for just a moment. A world that works for everyone, and awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence. We voted on those 8, 9 years ago and brought those into being. And I've been saying for this whole 8, 9 years, I've been saying those two phrases are inherently social and they're inherently justice oriented.
Hmm.
They're inherently social because it's a world that works for everyone, not a world that works for me, right? It's everyone, so it's inclusive. It's awakening humanity, not me, but awakening everyone, all of humanity, to its spiritual magnificence. So the use of its, right? What is its? Its is the subject of the sentence, and the subject is humanity, not the individual. So for a teaching that has a long history of being a very individualistic, personal application teaching, suddenly in our mission, the subject is humanity, not the individual. Suddenly the vision is everyone, not the individual. So, and we obviously have a world that currently does not work for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So our vision and mission is inherently social and it's inherently justice oriented. I'm not sure that everyone who voted on that 9 years ago
Understood.
actually knew what they were doing. Right, I'm just saying. Right? If we had come out and said, "Oh, by the way, before you vote, this is inherently social justice oriented, and in order to be in integrity with it, it means we're going to have to go down these roads."
Mm-hmm.
I bet the vote would have come out a little differently. So,
Yeah.
but it didn't. So here we are. And
Yep.
so having the courage to live into our vision and mission means we got to have these bigger conversations. We've got to start developing curriculum around this. And so some of the things that our organization is helping provide and do, there are some great entry points. First of all, we're not alone. There's a tremendous amount of education out there. If people are looking for what can I do and where do I start, there's just a ton of things available on YouTube and Facebook and et cetera. But a few places that our organization is starting. First of all, our Diversity Inclusion Commission has a number of great webinars and trainings available. And currently, they are offering a book study on the book Me and White Supremacy.
Okay.
And there's a book study just for ministers. There's a book study class that's just for practitioners. And then centers are encouraged to offer ones to their laity as well. And the member council may be actually doing one for members as well. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I'm
So,
going to
but if individuals wanted to get involved, they have to do it through their individual center. That's not through headquarters.
I just said I think maybe the member council is offering one for members wide, globally.
Okay.
So check on that.
Where would we get info? CSL.org?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. CSL.org, folks. Cool.
Yeah, so that's a place. And again, it's not rocket science. Anybody could, any minister, you could pick a practitioner in your center and start that as a book study. So that's a great place to start. Something like Me and White Supremacy, or the other one that's very popular is White Fragility.
Right.
Both of those are tremendously good starting points. And then there's work like Tracy Brown's work on Facebook, What Is Mine to Do? It's a great Facebook page to belong to if you're not already there, because there you will find videos from Tracy and posts by other members of the group on practical action steps, inspirational videos, and things that will inspire you to say, oh, yeah, I can do that. I can, because what we're talking about here is examining the lens through which we see the world. I like to point out whenever I can to audiences that what we're, the subject often is racism, but the greater context that comes from is a paradigm or a construct called whiteness. And whiteness is just that. It is a social construct. You and I, particularly you and I as individuals, are not so much white as we are European Americans, right? But white is a social construct and a lens that has affected and infected everyone and everything. And it affects people of color just as much as it affects European Americans. But whiteness is not a skin tone. Whiteness is not a race. Whiteness is not an ethnicity. Whiteness is a social construct. It's a lens through which we see the world, have been trained and indoctrinated to see the world. And so what we're really talking about is examining that way of thinking,
Mhm.
and again, being willing to have the courage to be critical about that way of thinking, and to say, is that really working for us? And if I really believe that in a world that works for everyone, then am I willing to deconstruct my structure of knowing? Am I willing to examine that lens and remove the parts that are no longer serving me nor serving people of color or the broader community that I belong to? Uh,
Mhm.
and again, that work is no different. If you are teaching a prosperity class, you are going to invite the students to examine the lens through which they see the world, the
Yep.
ways in which the lack and limitation has been indoctrinated and embedded in their consciousness, either through their parents, their social upbringing, their surroundings, their whatever. And you're going to say, you're going to invite them, and not only invite them, if I know you as a teacher, you're going to get on them, and you're going to say, no, that right there, you need to exercise that. You need to
Yeah.
get that out of, you need to get that stinking thinking in the rear of your mirror, because it's not serving you anymore.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's all we're talking about when we talk. People get so uncomfortable about these, race relation conversations, but that's only because we've avoided it for so long.
Yep.
It's time,
And
time
it's
to stop avoiding it.
and so if we're talking about the same idea of somebody being poor as the same, growing up with that, the same idea of somebody being racist,
Mm-hmm.
or however that shows up, principle, the idea is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
We need to relearn. We need to see that there's a broader possibility, something that's more life-giving, and do the same work. That's what I'm hearing you saying.
Right. The
So
principles are the principles. It's the same work. And so that's the thing. It's like, I want New Thought communities to be encouraged right now.
yeah.
If you feel uncomfortable and like, oh gosh, are we going there? Yeah, we're going there, but be encouraged, because you know what? You've been trained for this. If you're a practitioner in our center, you literally have been trained for this. Right? You've been
Amen.
trained in the tools, and
Yeah.
New Thought teaching has a powerful capacity to be a place that helps our collective society transform right now.
Absolutely.
It's not about looking at the bad guys. It's not about, pointing out who's bad or wrong. It's about all of us examining our collective consciousness.
Amen. So how do we reconcile that, Dr. David? How do we reconcile the individual in light of the collective then, when it comes to things like, what's world peace? We want world peace, world peace. Well, there's not going to be world peace if I'm not at peace, because I'm part of the world. I'm part of the collective, a world that works for everyone. So when we talk about, is there sacrifice involved in that then, in order for me to be peaceful? Do you have a guest?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to say hi to everyone?
Oh, yeah.
What do you got there? Come here.
Sugar.
Oh, you got sugar. Well, that.
Hey, pal. Look, he's got sugar. Hey, buddy.
Did your Gaga give you that?
Look at William.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that a cat?
Charles. Do you remember Charles? Say hi, Charles.
It's been a while. It's been a year.
Can you say hi? You don't want to say hi? Being shy today? Oh,
Hey, pal. It's all good.
You got a Paw Patrol pup.
Oh,
Candy?
Paw Patrol. There are things much more interesting than.
Sugar candy.
That sugar candy. Why don't you go ask your Gaga to open it up for you? Okay.
Good to see you, pal.
Bye.
Hi.
Sweet treat in the middle of the. That's awesome.
There it
What a
is.
sweet boy. So sugar. So how do we reconcile that then? Does it take, from my understanding, that it was take some sacrifice? So what it means for me to be at peace doesn't mean that I get everything I want, or does it mean that? And how do we reconcile that in light of New Thought, which somehow says if you get your thinking right, you can have everything you want. So, but it's got to work for my neighbor too.
Right. Right. So, yeah, a couple of things come up with that is, first and foremost, we've already said this, but be willing to do the work. Just have a ferocious curiosity, just a curiosity. Like, why do I think the way that I think? Where did that come from? Curiosity is transformative, because it'll lead you to new discoveries and allow you to unpack stuff that you've been carrying that you didn't know. So curiosity is just a huge tool, and leads you to the courage that you need to then do the work. The opposite of curiosity isn't knowing everything. The opposite of curiosity, I think, actually is shame. because shame just completely shuts down learning, you know,
Mm.
and that's what we have to be careful of right now, because there's such a woke culture, so to speak, that is taking place, and everybody's having a woke competition online.
Yep.
How
Yep.
woke are you? And,
Yep.
and and sometimes the way that shows up is that then we shame people who look like they aren't woke, and that's not serving anybody, because when people
Nope.
feel shame, then you're shutting them down, and there's no learning opportunity when you feel shame.
Yep.
So be curious about, you know, be clear. So you have things to learn. Everybody listening to this, you have things to learn. You have things to unpack. You have a conditioning called whiteness that needs to be deconstructed. So that leads to another point I would make, which is sometimes we tend to think, particularly Caucasian folks, we tend to think that being a good white person is enough, right?
Mm. What is a good one?
Well, you know, being liberal, however we might define that politically or socially, you know, having black friends, or you know, believing in oneness. But I'm not like so-and-so. You know, I'm not that police officer. I smiled at the African American barista today, and you know, said thank you, and you know, or whatever. It's like I'm a good. I'm nice, right?
A
I'm
champion.
nice. I like, yeah. Did you get it open? Okay, good. Can you go enjoy it, and then I'll come see how you're doing in a minute? You want to stand and watch the conversation?
Well,
You can stand right
Oh.
here. Look, you'll be on the screen. Okay.
so someone wants to know when were you at teen camp?
Oh, when was I at teen camp? For when was I not at teen camp? It was like
That's
a good,
what
it was a good 20-year run. You know, from I started at like 11 years old. Catalina Island, Camp Fox. That was in 1985, 86. And nonstop from there. Camp Fox, I think one Buckhorn in California. And then we moved to New Mexico. And so then I was part of the Rocky Mountain region camps in Colorado and New Mexico all through high school. And then when I started that leadership council, we created a national youth camp again. And so then that's when you and I connected, and we started bringing teens from all over the country together. And we did those in Colorado, most of them in California. So that would have been all through the early 2000s as a junior advisor, then an advisor, then a director. And so it was a good 20-year run.
I will open that door when you're done talking to that guy.
To that guy. That guy's Charles. Okay. I'll let you know when you can open the door. Okay, baby? Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Okay.
Are we on time? Where are we on time right now? I got to get better at having a clock in front of
When
me.
you're done talking to
Okay.
people, I will come to you and I will take you upstairs.
Okay.
Well,
you're gonna take me upstairs.
William has hijacked the show, ladies and gentlemen. William.
You know, I always try to just, you know, a lot of times he leaves me alone. He sees I'm busy, but I never want to sort of shame him or you know, make him feel guilty. It's like, no, he's always welcome in the space. He can say hi and
Oh, but when Mila was down here, before they went back to Seattle, she'd come in and, you know, that's hey, it's part of the entertainment of the show too,
it's
right?
a work from home environment. That's it. So anyway, so yeah, it's a good 20-year run. And I stopped when I started New Thought Center for Spiritual Living about 16 years ago. So,
Yep.
And I think went back once or twice as a guest advisor, but really haven't been involved in the last 15 years, have not really been actively involved in it.
Yeah.
So one of the, for a long time.
Yeah, we've got just a few minutes left. One of the things that I'm taking away from this is a message of being to be encouraged right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be vigilant, but to be encouraged. You know, not when there's unnecessary death and destruction and violence and things like that, but that there's an awakening afoot,
Mm-hmm.
and that we go ahead.
Yeah, there is, and I want to get back to that point I was making about, you know, sort
Please.
of good white
Please.
people, because sometimes there's an escape clause that we give ourselves, that, well, I'm good, I'm nice, I believe in oneness, I believe in justice, I think that thing that happened on TV was terrible and awful and wrong, and I said so online, and I vote the right way or whatever. That's yay for all of that,
Yeah.
and that's really not enough. There
Mm.
is a deconstruction of indoctrination that has influenced all of us. And so just, be courageous. Don't be afraid to do the work. So often people ask the question, I wanted to say all that to say this. Often people want to ask the question, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? There's lots of things you can do. Read Me and White Supremacy, read White Fragility, lots of videos, watch 13th or Just Mercy, et cetera, et cetera. Ton of stuff. Get on the Facebook page, What Is Mine to Do? Plenty of things you can do.
Yep.
I remember asking, I actually have up there, right there, Bishop Yvette Flender on the cover of Science Magazine.
Yep. Yep.
I remember years ago making a commitment to her and being very moved by an experience I had at one of her conventions. And I went to her privately afterwards and had a meeting in her office. And I just, on behalf of Centers for Spiritual Living and the work I was doing with Strategic Alliances, wanted to make a deep commitment, like, how can we do this work? And I just remember kind of pouring my heart out, and I just said, I'm here, and what can we do together? How can I support? And she was very gracious in her loving, wonderful way, and was thankful. And then she could see I was sort of looking for something more, and was in a position of the student, right, really learning. And she took a deep breath, and she said, "You're asking the wrong question."
Hmm.
And I said, "Okay." And I thought, did I phrase it the wrong way? Like, how did I, And she said, the question is not, what can you do? She said, if you really want to be part of this, the question is, how much are you willing to lose?
Hmm.
What are you willing to sacrifice? And that's an idea or thought that we're not used to in New Thought, that can make us feel uncomfortable right away. But, and then she went on, she said, because if you stick with me in this fight, it will cost you something.
Hmm.
It will cost you something. And I just really encourage, as much as that might make you uncomfortable, I encourage everyone listening to just keep that in the back of your mind. And it might be as simple as what it costs you is letting go of the world paradigm that you have called normal, right? And and I know we got to wrap up, but here's a real quick example of that.
Sure.
When I was just a few years back, when I was living in King City outside of Portland, I remember coming home from the gym one night, being stopped by the police for speeding. It's a school zone there on the road down to my house, and it was 25 miles an hour, and I was going maybe 40. And so we got stopped, and I was warned when we moved into the neighborhood, King City police are all over this thing. Don't speed past the school. And sure enough, 2 weeks into living there, got stopped. And when I was sitting there in my car, and the lights flashing in the back is 9:00 at night, and my hands on 2 and 4, the only thing that was going through my head was how upset my wife was going to be about how big the ticket was. Was it going to be, was it going to be $125? Was it going to be $200? What was the ticket? And, we were strapped for cash. William was a baby, and it was like, oh my God, how can you be, I'm going to get a lecture when I get home. How foolish can you be? That's diaper money. That's baby food money, et cetera, which tells you what a good wife I have, right? Keeps me on track and on budget.
Yeah.
But that is an example of the paradigm from which I was living. The only thing that I was concerned about was the lecture that she was going to give. I wasn't concerned about my well-being. I wasn't concerned about my safety. I wasn't afraid I was going to get dragged out of the car and kicked or abused or handcuffed or have an excessive use of force or anything.
Yep.
That is just so that the privilege of that moment is simply not an experience that my wife has, that my teenage son, who will be driving in the next few years, if he's lucky, if he does his chores and earns his
Is the
insurance
bees
money.
going, buddy?
Yeah. But that's not the experience that people of color have in this country. And so again, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice the structure of knowing that you call normal? I would have said, well, that's normal. Why would anybody, if you were speeding, why would you fear anything other than, oh, you were speeding and pay the ticket? That is a lens of blindness and whiteness that I have lived my life through. And so part of what I have to be willing to sacrifice is to let go of that and to stop thinking that my way is normal, and that everybody, like, well, why don't you think that way? Why when you're stopped, why do you have so much other stuff going on? Why don't you just think what I think?
Yeah.
I got to let go of that structure of knowing. So the question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to, it will cost you something. It will cost the lens that you have that's called normal.
Which creates discomfort, which creates generally why people wouldn't want to lose something. And yet I would contend also, or offer, that the things that we lose grant us a larger life.
That's right. You get free when you're willing to sacrifice. Again, I know sacrifice isn't necessarily a comfortable word in New Thought, but the truth is, the spiritual journey that any of us have been on, we've had to lose something, we've had to sacrifice something.
Yep.
If you talk about grief, where the world is feeling a lot of pain and grief right now. Grief is something that is not only feeling for the loss of the thing. Right? When a relationship ends, you feel grief for the loss of the ending of the relationship. But grief is also about the coming to terms, or reconciling, coming to terms with the death of the dream. What the relationship could have been, what you wanted it to be. So a relationship ends, and there might be even a part of you that says, "Oh, yeah, it was supposed to end. That was a time, and we didn't get there." But the last stage of that grief is the happy ever after that never occurred, right? And so when we're willing to sacrifice and go through and let that go, we get liberated.
Yep.
Sacrifice leads to liberation. And Ernest Holmes said that, that the ultimate goal of life is the emancipation from discord of every nature, and that goal is sure to be attained by all. But we got to move through that door called sacrifice. We got to let go of what we thought the world was supposed to look like, or what we believed was normal, and then get liberated into a new reality, which is that world that works for everyone. So none of us get free unless all of us get free.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, brother. I really, really appreciate your time today. Awesome stuff as usual. Love to do it again sometime.
Anytime.
Yeah.
It's a great pleasure.
Thank you so much for sharing with the community and enlightening us. And it's good to see your face.
Good to see yours.
The what is it? The gray-haired squirrel.
What else you got going on? I can't. Mine doesn't go up. There's nothing really to speak of here in this region, but I owe that to my wonderful fair-skinned European genes.
Thank you, Dave. Hey, appreciate you. Just want to share a couple of announcements if you want to hang out with Forum Cool. If you want to sign off, have a beautiful day, my brother.
All right.
Okay. God bless you.
Thank you.
That's Dr. David Alexander. Awesome man. Peace. So I want to encourage everybody to continue to support the center. The PayPal link, Jeff just put it up in the chat. Encourage you to continue to support our work. While the building may be mostly closed, the ministry is wide open. As you can see, we continue to make these wonderful offerings, and I pray that you've benefited somehow this morning from Dr. David and his insight. I know I have, and I'm grateful for that. So please, we welcome you to contribute financially. We got a few other wonderful things coming up this week. Tomorrow, who am I with tomorrow? Jafon Seeley. The continuing conversation while Dr. Joes continues to be away. I will step into that seat and have a wonderful conversation with Jafon tomorrow. Wednesday, the Sensational Six will continue to be presenting spiritual laws, bringing light to spiritual laws in the ways that they do. We're grateful for them, our ministerial graduates. Thursday, I'm sitting with our very own Jerry Lynn, this is going to be a fascinating conversation. Just talk about her path through life, love, the music industry, various centers and churches you worked at. Definitely an hour is not going to be enough, but we're going to start there and see what happens. I'm really excited about that conversation with Jerry Lynn on Thursday. And then Friday, another one of our very own, Gail Morton. We're going to talk about the Power of Eight, a new program that we're going to be rolling out next month in July. And we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of that and how it can benefit you specifically as we continue to create community during this time. And then, of course, Saturday at 10 o'clock, meditation. Sunday, another wonderful service. And Sunday, our house band. You'll get to hear our house band for the first time in a number of months. So we really encourage you to step in and partake of our Sunday service on June 28th. And then we roll into another wonderful week of goodness. So God bless you. Have a magnificent day. You are loved, know that, and held in the highest by the leadership of our center, by myself, Dr. Joe, Dr. Laura, our practitioners, everybody. We are one family, and we're very blessed. God bless you. Have a magnificent day. Peace, love.